Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're joining. Thank you, everyone, for joining us at this Global Islamic Economy Summit Series 2, where we're focusing today on the topic of what is the new normal for the halal industry. My name is Rafiuddin Shiko. I'm the CEO of a management consulting firm, Dinar Standard. And I'm honored to be a moderator for today's webinar. The title of the webinar is What is the New Normal for the Halal Industry? It is kindly and graciously organized by Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center and the Dubai Chamber in strategic partnership with Refinitiv. I'm grateful for this organizing team for have arranged this very important discussion and bringing together a great set of panelists. Before we start the session, I would like to go over a few housekeeping rules. For any technical issues during the webinar, you can click on the chat bubble and type your concern, and my colleague Dua will be able to assist you. Please click on the three horizontal buttons next to the red X mark to activate the Q&A and poll window on your screen. For any questions for the speakers, presenters, you can click the Q&A and direct your question to me. Please note that in the interest of time, we may not be able to address all the questions with the speakers. So during the session, you will be participating in polling questions and they'll appear on your screen. Please do, and we'll allow about 30 seconds for you to respond. It'll be a great way to engage and hear your thoughts and views that way as well. The session is being recorded and will be circulated to all attendees after the webinar has ended. So with that, once again, welcome everyone. We see people joining, and I'd like to start by also first sharing the agenda. We have about an hour. First of all, we will have some welcome remarks by Mr. Abdullah Alawar, the CEO of Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center. And then we'll go into an interactive panel discussion. I'll set some context for all of you, and we'll have about 15 minutes or so at the end for the Q&A. So with that, I'd like to pass the screen to Mr. Abdullah Lawar for his introductory remarks.
Rafi'. I wanted to start by thanking our esteemed friends and colleagues today joining us in the session and kindly agreeing to share their views on this rather important sector. So I wanted to thank Brother Saleh, Brother Professor Dr. Sekuso, and even Sister Dr. Hab, and Sister Asma from the US for joining us today. We at the Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center are definitely interested in their views and excited about the views on how this vital sector can help the economies around the world in terms of them sustaining the effects of COVID-19. We all know that we all know for a fact that the food industry, quite specifically, could be categorized as the least affected by the COVID-19 spread. That primarily was due maybe to the dependency on several countries in the OIC, but also some outside the OIC on importing food, especially during this crisis. So that gave perhaps somehow a bigger emphasis on the importance of food security, but also the continuity of supply. And we all know from reports such as the State of the Global Islamic Economy report, the value of the halal food sector has continued to rise, and we expect that it will continue. However, I myself will be very excited to hear the views about how the sector will continue to develop? What changes might we foresee that will happen in this sector, whether from a producer end or an importer end, or throughout the entire value chain? So with that being said, again, I wanted to welcome everyone. Again, our thanks to our colleagues at Dubai Chamber and Refinitiv for organizing this. We obviously are looking forward to hosting the 5th Global Islamic Economy Summit on the November 2021. And the GIES series was our effort to continue discussions, but more importantly, to shape the agenda for the upcoming Global Islamic Economy Summit. So with that being said, again, I want to thank everyone for their contribution and participation today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that introduction, and certainly the IEDC's leadership in the Islamic economy, and including the wider, or specifically the halal product space, has been very much exemplary. And we see a lot of our global partners or stakeholders that have been very much engaged and are on this session. So allow me to now introduce our distinguished panelists for the webinar. So today, first of all, we're honored to have Mr. Saleh Luta, who's the chairman of the UAE Food and Beverages Manufacturers Group, Ms. Asma Ahad, who's the director of halal markets for Ifanka out of US, Professor Sukoso, who's the DG and head of Halal Product Assurance Agency in Indonesia. We have Dr. Rihab Al-Amiri, who's the Director of National Accreditation Department of the Emirates Authorization for Standardization and Metrology. And I'll be your moderator and host. So before we get started, as you can see, we have a very strong mix of panelists, geographically diverse, so we'll get to hear the views geographic-wise. We'll also get to hear the views from some of the panelists who are actual industry players, meaning manufacturers, or represent manufacturers and their views, and we have certifiers, and we have the wider regulators. So I think we'll have the right mix, and I'm looking forward, distinguished panelists, for a good discussion with you. So before we get started, I'd like to start with a quick poll, and to get all of the audience warmed up. So in a moment, you will see, actually, the poll question has gone up. So if we can have about 15 seconds where you can all take a look at the question, and perhaps our panelists who can also see the question. The question is, top halal product exporters have been hit severely by COVID-19. Will this bring opportunity for local and other halal producers? So that's our question. It'd be great to see what our participants' view is on this. So I think the poll is closed, and we'll have about 30 seconds. So we will get started. What I'd like to do is, all right. So we see the poll answers up now. So we see majority of you. Just to confirm, has the poll closed? Sister Joanna or team, just to confirm, the poll did close, and I can. All right, and we're sharing the screen. So as you may, okay, great. And is the result visible to everyone? All right, great. So as you can see from the poll, looks like the response is mixed, that there will be some opportunities, and I think that's probably a very pragmatic response. All right, and I see some of you did not get enough time to respond, but I think we'll hear some of those responses from our participants. So as we go into even this very question, I'd like to share a couple of slides to give the context, and perhaps we can have a little bit of a discussion afterwards with the panelists around this. When we look at the halal economy in our initial analysis, as you all know, the Islamic economy covers many sectors. Islamic finance being a core, but the halal food is the product, the biggest anchor when it comes to halal products in the Islamic economy. We have fashion, media, recreation, travel, pharmaceutical, and cosmetics. And these have been the core sectors we've been covering in our annual report as well. As you can see from our brief analysis here, this was done based on a McKinsey analysis of top 3,000 global stocks and how they have responded during the COVID time period, December through April 2020. And based on that, the sectors that have been most impacted, and it's an obvious conclusion, is travel first and foremost, and finance, and relating to our sectors, the Islamic economy sectors. The ones that have been medium impacted are modest fashion and halal cosmetics, and perhaps the least impacted are food and pharmaceuticals. And I think we're also seeing a lot of innovation opportunities coming from these two product categories. So this is a little bit of a context in terms of the global impact of COVID-19 on our sectors. Moving on, another key related context point is that when you look at the top, this slide shows us the top exporting countries of halal products worldwide, as well as the top 5 importing markets. So the ones in black are the top 5 importing markets. The ones in yellow or orange are the top exporting markets. What's interesting is that currently, as of just 2 days ago, the top 5 most impacted COVID-19 case-based countries are in fact the top 4 halal product exporters. So the reality is halal value chain or trade must be affected. So I think with this context, it would be great to now jump in and start our panel discussion. And I would like to start by welcoming, first of all, Mr. Saleh Abdullah Luta, who's the chairman of the UAE Food and Beverage Association. Again, Mr. Luta, thank you so much for joining. I will have about 4 minutes. Mr. Luta, if I can request you to turn your camera on.
Thank you, Rafi.
All right, great, perfect. So we will have about, I'll ask a question to each of you, and if you can take about 4 minutes or so, and then we'll come back. So we'll have about 2 questions for each of you, and then inshallah, hope to have a good discussion with the questions that are already coming in from the audience. So my first question to start off, Mr. Luta, is recently Haj Saeed Luta, who was the visionary founder of the Dubai Islamic Bank, and not only DIB, which is really the first commercial Islamic bank of our modern times, but also a founder and pioneer of the wider halal economy or Islamic economy in many ways. I know also founded Al Islami Food that you had also led. Can you share with us Haj Saeed Luta's vision or your perspective and how it's relevant in today's environment as we go into this pandemic and inshallah come out of it?
Thank you very much, Rafiq, for giving me the time to give you our perspective. As you said, Haj Saeed is being a very unique and a role model in the halal industry. Do you hear me?
Yes, please.
Excellent. So in terms of his teaching for us, I do really regret, well, I did not spend enough time, even though I work with him closely, but he is a university. Every day goes with him, you're learning new things. This is what he taught us in this journey. So I remember the first really lesson I got from him after I finished my school from university, from US, and I was, so we were coming out from the mosque at praying Fajr. Usually, his house is very close to the mosque. So when I came out, I was going toward my car, and he said, Saleh, wait, I want to speak to you. I said, I was going to get into the car. I said, okay. So he wanted to walk with me until his house. So I went with him. He said, Saleh, this is your first week with Al Islami. I said, yes. He said, Saleh, I want to give you one lesson since you're starting right now this journey. He said, don't look into what you're getting in terms of compensations only to what you're getting in terms of a salary. Since you are working in this industry, the halal industry, always keep this in your mind, that you're getting two rewards. One is the compensation which we are getting in this life, but there is a bigger reward which we are getting in the day after. Usually, people who work in the halal industry sometimes tend to forget this lesson. Why I am saying this? Because we get busy with the daily operation challenges we go through. This is the first lesson, so he told me to look really and keep in your mind always, looking for the bigger reward, not the shortcut. The other one, the other lesson, he said, Saleh, always, whenever you wake up in the morning and going to your office, keep in your mind that you're going in the sake of Allah. He said, why? He said, Saleh, you would be getting a lot of challenges, obstacles. You will be going through a lot of challenges while you're doing and trying to execute this halal industry. Whatever the industry is it finance, is it services, is it food? But if you are in this path, make sure that from morning, keep this in your mind, that you're doing it in the sake of Allah, to make sure that you get a bigger reward in the day after. So I keep this always in my mind. So in terms of a personality, he has a totally different understanding than what we have. And this is what we see from all what he's doing. I remember I was sitting in his majlis, and in Ramadan, and Jum'a al-Majid, most of you will be knowing who's Jum'a al-Majid. Jum'a al-Majid is one of the big businessmen in Dubai. So we were waiting for Haj Saeed to come out from his home. He told me, Saleh, I was praising him and praising Haj Saeed as a role model business people. He said, no, Haj Saeed is not a businessman. So this comes to me as a big hit in my face. What do you mean he's not a big businessman? He said, Saleh, Haj Saeed is an inventor. We are businessmen because we take agencies, we do trading, we get a product from here and we try to sell it here. But Haj Saeed wasn't doing that. So if you see all his businesses, it's always going the extra mile. From Dubai Islamic Bank, Al-Islami Food, the first construction company, his medical college, pharmacy college. So whatever you bring to him as a copy business, he will tell you, I'm not interested. Unless it's challenging business, he will look into it. So this is what we've learned really from him. And this is what he is really trying to give us in terms of understanding. The other things what he talk about is, the other things which he always talk about, that there is two things which he really believes in. The first is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ. This means that fear Allah and Allah will show you the right path and the right way. So he really focuses on these two things. One is learning. Learning was very important for him, and making sure that halal living is always with us. So in terms of learning, for him, the learning does not end after you finish school. The learning finishes when you are passing away from this life. This is one thing in terms of learning for him. So he always continuously learning, even in the last day of him in this life, he was learning new things. The other thing, he believes that halal and Islam is not only in the mosque. It's how we do deal with people. How do you practice Islam in all our way of doing? This is totally different perspective. I know it will be a long, if I start speaking about Haj Saeed, it's a very long speech, but in terms of teaching, this is what's living with us right now.
Beautiful. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, greatly pleased with him. And I think for the benefit of the audience, Brother Luther, if you can close just a little bit of what were the context of why he's relevant for a halal economy, because we do need role models. We do need good inspirations. And I think we're looking and searching. This is still a young industry. And certainly Haj Saeed Luther would be one of the great role models. So for those who don't know of his work, could you just summarize, just so for those who may not be familiar?
Haj Saeed, as you know, he's been the pioneer. I think he's the godfather of behind most of the halal industry we see right now. As I said, he was believing in to have a role model society. You need to focus on three things. One is education, to make sure that your people are continuously learning new things. The second one is food, to make sure that you are feeding these people a proper halal food. And the third one is the financial services in terms of banking. And if you see these main pillars, is the most important pillar for any society. So when it comes for financial services, you see what he's done, Dubai Islamic Bank. When you talk about food, you see Al-Islami food. When you talk about the education, he have a totally different philosophy when it comes about education, which is being practiced and he already implemented. It's a mind-blowing concept, which is paying back.
Great. This is a great way to set our session because, sometimes we dive straight into business and the impact on the business. And it's a great reminder to all of us and in the industry that there is a higher purpose to this space and we are grounded. And in fact, this is a unique contribution of the halal economy to the world of bringing this perspective and have about consciousness and care for people and provide healthy, fair, quality food and education and financing as you've articulated. So I think with this, and I will come back to you, Mr. Lutha, specifically speaking about the business side of things, inshallah. But with this, I'd like to now move to Sister Asma ahead from Ifanka. Sister Asma, we know Ifanka is one of the major halal certifiers in the world and certainly in America. As you saw from the statistics I earlier shared, America is one of the largest halal products exporter in the world. Can you share with us, as you are engaged with your many clients that are major exporters of halal products from the US, what has been the impact of the COVID-19 from a disruption to their business point of view when it comes to halal exports?
Again, thank you. I just wanted to say thanks for the introduction about Ifanka. We are an organization that is dedicated to promoting halal, and one of the things that we do as promoting halal is certification, but education is a big piece. Halal education is a big piece of our work, as well as market development and educational services. So jumping into the question that you asked with regards to what do we see the impact of COVID-19 having on industry and maybe perhaps the overall supply chain, I think it depends on the industry that you're looking at. When we're looking at ingredients such as flavors and other products such as grains, so on and so forth, we don't see a large disruption. And a lot of the companies from the U.S. that export these products, they are used to disruptions. They're companies that have existed in World War I and World War II, such as Archer Daniel Midland or Cargill. Those are companies that have existed for a long time, and they know to anticipate risks and manage through those. I think another space that we're seeing growth in, not only steady, you see steady progress with ingredients, but we're seeing growth in health and wellness areas. Like there's a huge interest among consumers, especially halal consumers, to find products that will give them the right immunity in this environment, and also the right physical acuity to survive the pandemic. So we've seen an increase in products such as supplements and pharmaceuticals that will enable people to make it through the pandemic. So those are two areas that I think are fairly steady, are growing. I think the area that we see the most risk in is probably the meat and poultry industry, where you have it's inherent with meat and poultry that you have a lot of human interaction, not only at the point of slaughter, but also when you're processing the ingredients. Usually it's, you have the poultry going down, it's been slaughtered, has to be defeathered, the parts of the chicken have to be taken apart. So you really have a bunch of people working pretty closely together in a small environment. So you have a lot of human interaction. We've seen an increase in COVID cases in meat and poultry plants. And there is some disruption, and it's probably reflected in the price of those commodities. But the long-term impact of that will be dependent on science and how they're able to manage the COVID-19 crisis, the pandemic, and work through it and essentially maybe even troubleshoot. Suppose COVID-19 is not completely eradicated. Suppose it's still existing, then the meat industry and the meat and poultry industry, how they troubleshoot and how they're able to create alternative working scenarios that will enable them to work and get product out to their key markets will be dependent on will determine how they're able to supply their clients.
If I may just as a quick follow-up on that, because this is a very common question right now, is what processes in terms of auditing and certifying on the ground to such producers, especially meat and poultry, are in place, and are they expected to remain for a long time? Meaning, even when the pandemic goes away, are there some things that as a practice might change when it comes to the auditing and halal certifying process?
So there's not a blanket answer, like there's not one uniform answer that applies across every plant or every aspect of the industry. We do a case-by-case basis. Like, for example, there's clients that we have long-term relationships with that we know how they process and how they work. And we know the slaughterman that's at the facility. And so we're closely connected. And there's some, and in fact, a lot of those situations, those people are well-versed, if not somehow affiliated with our organization. So that impacts how we're able to certify them. And then the other piece going to that is certification not only starts at the point of slaughter or at the point of manufacturing for ingredients, but it starts well before. It starts at the point of procurement. And so we have all the documentation that precedes the actual manufacture or the actual production or processing. So having all of that information up front enables us to make viable decisions as to how to proceed in certification. I could provide you more information in terms of what some of the different methodologies we're using if you're interested, but that's kind of in a nutshell, like without going into too many details, saying that there's a lot of different ways, but it just depends on the relationship.
Got it. Great. Thank you, Asman. We'll come back. And I know Ifanka also, as Mr. Luther, you mentioned the importance of education. I know Ifanka does a lot of educating of consumers on halal lifestyle within America, which is, I think, a great duty and service they provide to both not just the Muslim community, but general consumers. And I think, again, it's great to see the thread of purpose behind halal carrying on there as well. So next, and I know, Asma, inshallah, I think we'll come back to that as well. I'd like to come to Professor Sukoso. Professor Sukoso, it's great to have you. Selamat pagi. We know Indonesia is the largest Muslim and halal consumer market in the world. Yeah. And we know some major changes that are going on in terms of the halal compliance process in Indonesia. But if you want to just quickly introduce BPJPH and what is your current key focus in terms of the new regulations to be implemented in Indonesia about halal.
Okay, thank you, Rafi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon for all. I'm very happy today because I just came back from the parliament to give the report during the COVID-19 because, you know, everything locked down, and jump in the activity, especially for small, medium enterprises, jump in the decreased activity, how to grow up again. Therefore, in that time, after when I was in the parliament, I talked about the effect of the COVID, especially in the activity for micro, small enterprises. So, you know, I will emphasize this information on important event as history of halal in Indonesia. You know, halal is a sensitive issue in Indonesia as the country with the largest Muslim population in the world, with a total around 260 million, and more than 85% are Muslim who need halal product. You know, in that time, in 1988, one researchers in the one university in East Java province identified the contamination of the derivative of the pork include in the food and beverages. It's really give the bad effect in the sales of the national production, decrease until 20 and 30%. You know, and this event became an early milestone in halal certification in Indonesia, but it is voluntary because Indonesia does not yet have law governing halal products in the market and trade. Therefore, in and then in 2001 again there was another case in food flavoring a factory which resulted in the withdrawal of a number of products on the market. Both of these national events are important ingredients for the parliament to prepare a halal product guarantee or law. We call it the law number 33, which was passed on October 17, 2014. And now we enter in the mandatory for halal certification start from 17 October 2019. Yeah, BPJBH was established based on law number 33 and was officially established on October 11, 2017. Effectively, we are as the government institution start for doing activity in 2018. So now we are entering in third year doing as the authority for doing the halal certification in Indonesia. So, BPJBH is a government institution under Ministry of Religious Affairs, takes care of halal product guarantees, and mandatory halal certification is a parliament order through law number 33. I am, as a representative of the government, are required to carry out the statutory order. Whatever happens, we continue to run. Indeed, this co-pandemic has a significant impact on applicant for halal certification, especially at the micro, small enterprises, especially when lockdown are conducted, which caused a drastic decrease in the marketing activities of public products in the market and shift to products that are run online. This rapid thing is not an easy for me, especially for micro, small enterprises, for people to behave using digital technology. This shows that the condition of micro, small enterprises is very vulnerable to changing habits in selling manual to model, because digital model require capital and skill that are all owned by micro, small enterprises. Target of attention in the micro, small enterprises, which has a total of nearly around 63 million units of business to serve a very large market of around 260 million customers, but we believe that it is difficult for us to rise, and micro small enterprises is the main target for our policy to be rise in the activity of our economy. Indeed, there is a positive impact on the rise community effort with the lockdown policy to deal with the COVID pandemic, causing the migration of residents from big cities back to villages or regions that this has the potential to generate a local economy in the area. So there is a kind of my report to our parliament. Therefore, I just back to the parliament, and really, today is very happy to give you to join with your meeting today. Thank you, Rafi. This is my explanation about your question.
Thank you so much, and we are extremely happy that you were able to come back in time. You know, you had the parliament meeting and you could have almost missed the session. And it's very important for us to hear from, again, one of the largest halal markets in the world. And we're very much closely watching some of these this development that you said, which is number one, just to summarize for the audience, in October 2019, mandatory halal certification regulation, and there's a time frame extended to enable the businesses domestically to comply, and your organization is leading that charge. I think I will come back to you, Professor Sokoso, because you know the massive job that you have. You know the small enterprises. I can't remember, but over 2 million, I believe, SMEs that you will have to be addressing, and others. How are you going to manage to implement it? We all want to know. And I think we'll come back to that, and I think it'll be a great case study for all of us. Now, I want to move next to Dr. Rehab. You know, one of the, in fact, if I look at Dr. Rehab, a lot of the questions that already are, they're about a very common set of questions we are all still grappling with in the halal industry, as you all know, as you know very well, which is how can we help bring efficiency in the halal compliance process? How can we improve or remove the so-called barriers that are seen by certain international players in getting the halal compliance? And we all know there's a lot many halal standards. We have the certifying bodies that need to be accredited. We have different jurisdictions, they have their requirements, and so forth. So I know the International Halal Accreditation Forum, of which you are the Secretary General, one of your goals is to address that. So could you please start with giving the audience an overview about IHAF, what are its objectives, who are the organizers, given it's a multilateral platform, as I understand, and its objectives? Dr. Rehab.
Thank you very much, Rafi. Assalamu alaikum. And I'm so happy that my brother and sister from esteemed guest speaker, they paved the road for me, so they make my mission very easy. So just to give you a brief about IHAF. So as you know, and from what has been already mentioned, that there is a tremendous need of an organization that can manage and organize and let's say communicate and collaborate different national economies to ensure that we have multilateral recognitions and acceptance of halal certifications issued by different certification bodies across the globe. And for that reason, and from also the mandate of that need, which also has been discussed late 2015 in OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries meetings, UAE took the initiative to establish IHAF to be the platform that can organize and manage all activities related to accreditation bodies in order to ensure that we have and harmonize the processes, a procedure that allow us to facilitate the trade and to eliminate any technical barriers to trade. This has been established and fostered by UAE with pioneering two organizations, which is ISMA as well as Dubai Islamic Economic Development Center. And luckily, within less than a year, IHAF has been taken to the next level to be a very well-known international organization. And if we can see, since the inception of IHAF, up to date in comparison to other peer organizations working in the field of quality infrastructure, that we have more than 200% increase of members of IHAF from the date of establishment with 8 constitutional countries. So today, we have in IHAF 38 members. The majority of them, they are full members, and all of them, they are also members in other peer organizations like ILAC, which is International Laboratory Accreditation Forum, responsible for also organizing and harmonizing activities between national accreditation bodies in the field of testing, calibration, and inspection, as well as the other peer organization, which is IEF, which is International Accreditation Forum. I have also went through a couple of milestones since the inception, and with a very short age that we also signed an MOU with ILAC and IEF late 2018 to ensure that we are not duplicating the work and we will not create a burden on conformity assessment bodies and on certification bodies as well as on accreditation bodies. So whatever has been recognized in one organization can be utilized to complete the picture in relation to other mandates responsible within the responsibility of other organizations similar to IHAB. So I think from what has been mentioned so far, and coming back to COVID and the impact of COVID on halal, I believe that today we can rest assured that the ideology of establishing IHAB was the remedy of a lot of countries, because we are empowering the local market through globalization. So we can be globalized through localizing, and this is what I call it glocal. Okay, so we're being global through local, and I can see from the numbers that you presented, which is so rational, when we are looking that pharmaceutical and food are the least impacted industry, which is already has been strongly tackled by IHAB as well as by regulators and by all government entities across the globe, because the basic need needed always to be secured. And if we can see that despite the disruptions that happened during COVID across the supply chain and despite the lockdown, it's still, we do have the confidence to maintain and sustain the flow of goods, okay, whether between countries to countries or between a country into different cities, with the confidence that we do are fulfilling the requirements. This is a success that we need to celebrate. If we wanted to see how we can move forward to ensure that what is halal according to our requirements, I think COVID taught us a lot and took us into different levels. So we have now a kind of a leap in how we can ensure competency using the COVID as a model for us to learn.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Rehab. So to confirm for our audiences the role that I have, and to confirm or clarify also for our audience, IHAP is not a certifying body. IHAP is not a standard setting body. You are a platform that are bringing other accreditors who can cross-recognize the accredited certifying agencies that they have, correct? And so I think, and it's, as you said, it's been organized here out of UAE with ESMA and the IDC as your partners, and you now have a big membership internationally of the various accreditation agencies. I think I will, I'll come back to you on, the common, Dr. Rehab, the question I'm sure you hear is how do we relate and bring the other similar bodies, and maybe we do or we don't need to, but certainly it's a very common question that everyone has, and I'm sure we'll have a few. But keeping to the point of UAE just for a moment, it's obviously UAE is one of the largest importers, as we see from our numbers here. In fact, the second biggest importer of halal product, and it's because not because you have the biggest consumer market only, but you also are a major re-exporter. And so you have the ability and influence to address this as well. So I will come back to this. I'd like to go back to Mr. Saleh Lutha. Mr. Saleh Lutha, if you can put your hat on now for a moment as the UAE Food and Beverage Manufacturers Group chairman, and also having led Al-Islami, which has been an iconic halal brand, very true to the mission, as you said. And, you know, I personally in our firm have been following the level of the defining the quality of halal from Al-Islami has been certainly exemplary. Can you speak to us specifically a little bit about what the association, i.e. the food industry within UAE, is facing in terms of challenges coming out of the COVID? Do you see opportunities coming out of the COVID for UAE's manufacturers? And this linked to the poll question also we had, where if the biggest supplier markets are being affected because of COVID, does it bring opportunities for other markets such as UAE and others, Indonesia and others, to to expand their production and exports?
Okay, thank you, Rafi. To give you an idea, no doubt that COVID-19 have really disturbed the supply chain overall. And I'll give you a quick example. After the hit, as you know, Dubai government, UAE government have taken very proactive role in terms of setting a red line when Sheikh Mohammed, Sheikh Mohammed spoke about the food and the medicine to be a red line to make sure that the food supply and medicine supply is not interrupted. This is when we sit with all the stakeholders to really look into how can we were having a very tough question, Rafi, I have to admit. Government, when Sheikh Mohammed have put this red line, the government created a committee regarding the food securities, and they wanted to know how much do we have in terms of food and how long this food can sustain with us. Because as you know, at that time, nobody was knowing when the thing will be lifted and when the hit of COVID-19 will come to an end. So when we've looked around, these information were not really captured properly, I would say. Not to the standard where I wanted to have it. But we as a group, we were acting on something we call it the food platform, which is a platform we initiated 3 years ago because of our belief in digitalizing all our information, especially when it comes for food. You know, the full value chain from the farm to the fork, where you have the producers, the manufacturer, the wholesaler, the logistic companies, the retailer, the consumer. We want to know how much do we have with all the stakeholders, and the information were not easy to find because you have to go visit all these wholesalers, visit all these manufacturers, visit all the retailers to come to know what do they have in terms of their store. So we worked very hard to really implement that, where we got AC Nelson, we're part of this, the give us a very good help, municipalities, and all the other stakeholders. And we were really acting with the government to try to get to the number as close as possible. So when you tell me, Saleh, what opportunity do we see? I see data. Without data, we will not be able to move forward. So in terms of data, how can we really capture this data in terms of information, transfer it to become a digital, and from making it digital, how can we utilize the blockchain to really even help us with the halal certificate?
Great.
As you know.
Great. And then I think this is so you would say the fact that you put in systems and technology in place to even understand the supply availability will actually help the industry going forward, because now you have a system of a more of a real-time tracker of the supply chain, and hence perhaps enable improvements even in trade and helping the supply.
Rafi, just to add, see, data is very important for all the stakeholders who sit in the value chain. Government will be able to regulate based on the stock they have in the country. Wholesaler will understand how much stock is in the country, so they don't need to end up by overstocking and then liquidating, then giving it to as an expired product. Retailer, manufacturer, So imagine how much weight do we have in the value chain. And if we have these prompt data available with us continuously, the whole value chain and the stakeholder will benefit. And this is what we are trying to promote with our food platform, which we've already established and is going on.
That's great insight. Thank you, Mr. Luta. Sister Asma, with Ivanka, you know, Mr. Luta talked about blockchain and blockchain facilitating even the compliance process. And I know Ivanka is looking at it, maybe looking at it. Can you quickly, and I want to be conscious of the time. We have around 10+ minutes remaining. I want to ask some of the questions that have been posted also. So if you can give short answers, I'd really appreciate it. You're on mute, Sister Asma. You're on mute. If you could repeat, please.
So when we're assessing blockchain, it's in the beginning stages. There's spaces that it makes more sense than others, and so it's just being evaluated right now because it wasn't inherently built into the system when we started. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, great. You know, because you're on the forefront, and you'd have a sense, especially from the U.S. side. Professor Sukoso, could you share? I know you have recently formed some partnerships to enable technology to automate the process and work for BPJPH, and especially in this environment, as Mr. Luta also alluded to. Tell us how you're using technology or any other tools and processes to help you bring efficiency in your process.
Yeah. We start with the, of course, it is because me start with the new institution. You know, everything must be prepared. Yeah. Blockchains, it is a kind of the technology that we need, but unfortunately, of course, we have some limitation in especially for human resources. Working together with some parties, like maybe from the other part of the Ivanka, maybe giving me to help the technology for developing the blockchain system, maybe some of the to support the how to make more efficient the certification and also the registration in coordination with other partner with the country like USA, because the US is a main of the our partner Indonesia, because mostly the product also come from USA. Therefore, that's cooperation is necessary for me to support the activity of halal in the BPGBs. I know that we are as a new institution. Of course, we have so many limitations. Therefore, we identified all. Then maybe for the next step, we can have the event to discuss, maybe to make a cooperation each other. This is my comment to support the halal certification in my country. Okay.
Great. I think this is a great call out to all the entrepreneurs. And I know within the halal economy and Islamic finance, Islamic economy space, there are quite a few ventures linked related to blockchain. And I think it's an opportunity for both regulators and administrators like BPJPH or even Ivanka, which is a large private certifier, to really leverage the existing ecosystem. And I know they are there. And I think the connections need to happen. Dr. Rehab, coming back to you, maybe if you can tell a little bit about how are you engaged? We have Professor Sukoso from Indonesia and other jurisdiction. As you know, halal, we're talking about 1.8 billion, at least Muslims, but halal is now for the rest of the world also. It's a huge, really community. I don't want to use the word market. And we know, for example, there are other initiatives also, and the OIC, which is the representative body of 57 OIC countries, has also set up an entity called SMEEC, and they have their initiatives. We recently also saw Malaysia start an initiative. How do you, and Indonesia, I'm not sure where in terms of an accreditation platform, where does Indonesia sit, but how do you, as IHAP, bringing alignment or efficiency in this community, in the halal community?
Thank you very much. Yes, I think we are already in collaboration momentum. And coming back to OIC, if we look into IHAB members, so we have around maybe 50% of IHAB members, they are OIC members. Moreover, that we have 5 board of director members within IHAB. They are within a board of director of SMIC Accreditation Council. And if we are talking about SMIC, it's the Standardization and Metrology Institute of Islamic Countries. So basically, their presence is very important because they are a standardization body in which they are harmonizing the standard across the 57 countries, Muslim countries, which can be used by the rest of the world. So we have a very good and strong collaboration because in IHAB accreditation body, when they do accredit the certifiers, they have to accredit them based on the standards, okay? And those standards, they can be taken at the national level to create a national scheme. For the time being, IHAB, they are recognizing UAE scheme because it's very essential to have a scheme which a set of standards plus other technical requirements. But we are in the pipeline also with the SMIC to adopt the SMIC standard, and I have also with a strong relation with OIC to be identified as a designated platform for Halal Accreditation body.
Great.
Yeah. So I think that we are in a this collaborative momentum. Yes.
That's great to hear, and I think that would be the wish of everyone in the industry and our community, and for the sake of the success of the role that halal can play in the world. I have a question from the audience that I think is very timely and links to this purpose and broader vision. The question is, how do you, and then if I can direct this to Mr. Lutha, how do you evaluate the future of halal and particular halal certification, if we can be very specific, for improving the health of mankind during pandemics such as COVID-19?
Okay. See, in terms of halal, one thing I want to say, it is a big responsibility on us. I would come to the certification part of it. See, I think in the people who are in the halal industry, they represent hope. And they represent hope for the 3 billion populations Muslims all over the world. And the reason is why I'm saying this, because we need to be the role model for these people to have something to look up to, especially now with most of with their perception of Islam all over the world. We need to really do our best to represent the right Islam as an individual, as company, and as country. We don't take it as a business. No, these people need to look for a role model. What they see in the news, what they see in the media, it's not the right Islam. We want our kids to grow up hating. This is our responsibility. How do we do it? As an individual, I have to be a role model in my society. How do I do it as a business? I have to be a role model in the economy. How do I do it in terms globally? We need to be a role model and benchmark companies. So we need to raise the bar very high.
Great.
In terms of deliverables.
Great.
And I think, Ravi, just to add one thing more. See, and we have a great opportunity right now because of the social media. Life is not like it used to be. We have a very great weapon to use to represent who we are. In terms of companies, what companies are? We have people, we have challenges, we have a product, we have a message, we have a philosophy. We need to promote this through our social media. So people have to see our company as a living company every day. We have to engage our consumer to what we are doing in terms of a big mandate. By this approach, Rafi, believe me, these consumers will become your ambassador. They will fight for your company, but require a sincere objective to be in our heart to deliver it.
Absolutely, and I think I will take this opportunity to also open up a poll and start this poll, and we can continue our conversation in the meantime. So for the audience, a poll is up, and we'll leave the poll open, Dua and Joanna, for a little longer this time. The question is, do you see halal products, and this is for our audience, do you see halal products expanding their appeal globally with a growing interest in healthy and sustainable? And Brother Luther and everyone, to your point about the wider responsibility and the role it can play. So what do you all think? Yes, is it already happening? Are you seeing it? Maybe if aggressively marketed as such, or not at all. So let's see what our participants think. Continuing on this thought point, Mr. Luther, I think we are keen to see role models, and when we talk about the economic context, brands. So, Al-Islami as a brand, I mean, if we had a Nestle equivalent infused with halal values, as you said, people would really fight for it, just like we fight for our iPhones and the favorite brands that we have. So I think we've always been aspiring and encouraging this. Professor Secoso, how do you see the context of the need of impact? And I'll close, inshallah. We're almost out of time, but with the last question with Sister Asma as well. But Professor Secoso, any comments on this? You're on mute.
Sorry. Hello.
Yes, Professor Secoso, go on.
Okay, it's okay. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah. I think this is my last comment for as the close of our meeting today. Yeah, the cooperation based on the mutual benefit to support the growth of halal industry is the important thing for BBTB. Is in case that my position is the with the big market, and we lack with some of the capability to support the using the technology, like as I mentioned before, developing by the blockchains and maybe other issues that we can work together. Also the SMIC, as I mentioned before, that it's very important, because as a new institution under the government, we possible to use the standard from the SMIC or maybe other country by doing government to government cooperation, or maybe some of cooperation that we can design together with our partners. It's my last comment.
Great, thank you so much, and I'm really excited to see a response from the poll. I don't know if our other fellow panelists can see the response. So, mashallah, 59% saying that it's already happening, meaning halal already is globally seeing the interest in halal being healthy and sustainable. So I think, alhamdulillah, and I, from our standard coverage point of view, especially from some of the Western markets, we're seeing halal really starting to be seen as halal as healthy. And it is a very positive brand in an international context. Islamic may be, a challenging brand, if I can use that word, but halal is really is something that the world is seeing it in a positive way. It's an opportunity for us to create more role models and really deliver the values that it stands for. I'll take one last question to Sister Asma to make sure she has her voice as well on a very important topic that you've been passionate about, which is the impact of food on poverty and the impact it's having on people's lives. And one of the questions is, how do you see this COVID-19, which is causing food shortage and increased hunger severely in OIC countries in particular? And FAO recently announced, over 150 million people will go under poverty and have less nutrition. What is the role of the halal industry, and what can you practically do about it?
That's a really big question. Can you hear me? That's a really big question. I'll try to answer it to the best of my ability. I think that we have a great panel here, and there are people who are change makers within the space. And Ivanka has a relationship with each of the folks in this on this panel and beyond. And it's our responsibility to all work with each other to develop strategies to help bridge that gap. When we look at COVID-19, the more affluent countries, especially in the Islamic economy, will do fine. There'll be, if you have the money to pay for goods, you'll get it. The ones that are going to struggle are the ones that are developing economies. And there's a lot within the Islamic economy that are doing that. And I know at Ivanka, we've taken that very seriously, and we're working in the spaces that we can in terms of how do we aid developing economies around the ideas of nutrition equity and food security. And we take that very seriously. We're developing programs within the US and with international organizations as well to address that. And we are really looking for partnerships to, because Ivanka can't do it alone. No one group could do it alone. We all need to work together, and we look forward to continue building those relationships with all the amazing people.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Rehab, if you had any final comments before we close.
Yes, I believe that I totally agree with Asma, mainly the strong collaboration. I think that we need to look to a new opportunity when it comes to food manufacturing. We need to look into also what could be a secured halal food that can ensure that it is halal, but it is also achievable and attainable by anyone. So this is how our contribution to support society and to support poverty, looking into also to what requirements that needed to be there in personnel, in manufacturer, using new technology, okay, how we all together we can come into one platform that can ensure that we are satisfying halal and Sharia requirements, Islamic Sharia requirements, but also we are supporting the need of the humanity. So I think this is time, yeah.
Great, thank you. I think
Go ahead, sorry.
Please. No.
No, I just wanted to say that it's really leveraging these relationships which we have with each other, and then bridging it to the relationships we have with industry and bringing everybody to the table, because everybody's a stakeholder in this conversation.
So brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great panel discussion. I want to really thank our panelists. I hope it's been a valuable time for all of you, as I'm sure your contributions have been very valuable for our participants on the panel. I have certainly enjoyed our conversation, and it's really gives me high hope, continued high hope, and it's great to keep the spirit of this halal economy, the halal in the economy, and the opportunity that we have in front of us to lead the world and do good in the world through this space. So I'd like to thank all of the attendees for staying with us. We had over 200 that have stayed on with us, and again, this GIES series on, in this case, the topic of what will be the new normal for halal industry was organized by Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center and Dubai Chamber in strategic partnership with Refinitiv. We look forward to welcoming you all again in the third one, as you can see up on the screen. It's called The Future of Jobs. It will be on August 11th, and we all hope you can join. Thank you again, and thank you to the organizers from me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.